Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-hosts, Maddie B. and Rick David. Got a full show of football today, and I'm going to get right into it with the mailbag. I'll be honest, we had a lot of questions about the games involving some of our favorite teams, but we're going to get to them anyway. So I got the biggest question here for the week. Will Le'Veon Bell play on Sunday? The rumor is he's going to report Wednesday, which is tomorrow, or currently when this comes out, if you download the podcast version, you'll be listening to it. You'll know the answer. But let's go around the horn. We'll start with you, Matt. Do you think he's going to report, and will he play against the Browns?
Probably not. I think at this point he'll go ahead and sit out at least week one and try to leverage. Maybe if the other running backs play like crap, maybe he can say, hey, you need me. Let's get this deal done. Use it as one last-ditch effort to try to leverage for Aaron Rodgers type money. And if it doesn't work, then he can always come back week 2 or week 3.
Rick, what do you think?
I agree. It's either going to be week 2 or 3. It's not going to be this week. It's Browns week. There's nothing to prove against the Browns, so he needs to come back in the second week. So, I mean, if Connor has a good game, he'll definitely have to rush back because he'll need to reclaim his spot. And here's the thing. If he was going to show up this week, he would have showed up on Monday, not Wednesday. I mean, if he's showing up on Wednesday, it means he has no leverage. He has nothing. He's giving up. If he's going to fight for everything, he's going to stay to week 2. So at least have some type of, energy, momentum, and also try to prove a point. But I know you guys saw it, and we started talking about it immediately. I got an update immediately on my phone. Was Mac getting traded for 2 first-round picks? I mean, Raiders got criticized for it, but I think it's going to be something that helps them. I don't see the Steelers trading Bell at all. He's going to stay with them no matter what.
Oh, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, if you trade him, then you can actually get something in return. They've been kind of throwing out the marketing speak, though, in terms of James Conner talking about how great he is. My concerns, he had the knee injury last year. I mean, we all know he got sick in college out of his hands. But you don't want a guy that has durability issues whenever you're trying to just trade possibly the best running back in the league. So Tomlin kind of came out and he threw some shade, so I know he's kind of pissed off, even though he won't say it. It's going to hurt the locker room.
You know what?
Go ahead.
But he doesn't. He shouldn't be mad because Le'Veon Bell hasn't reported to camp. He hasn't done anything. He wasn't going to show up on Labor Day. He's going to take the day off. So the earliest that he might have shown up was today, anyhow. And maybe he's still up his Labor Day plans.
That's a unique spin on it. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. So we'll see. We're going to get into some Steelers stuff here in a little bit. Let's kick it off the high tempo. I saved this, but I wanted to get into the show a little bit to congratulate Matty B, our very own, on his first win as a head coach last weekend in pretty dominant fashion, too. I started to watch some of the tape, go through it, so very cool to see. Congrats. What were your thoughts on the game?
I was pretty excited, actually. For those that aren't based in Western Pennsylvania, we had a lot of lightning strikes and games were postponed and canceled. So our game was actually called midway through the third quarter. It was pretty exciting. Always great to get that first victory. We were midway through, and I think the refs were really trying to push to get the game finished up. And heard the trainer say, "You heard me tell them, if they keep this going and someone gets struck, I'm not liable." And it wasn't a couple of minutes afterwards that they sent us up to the locker room. So at that point, we were up 28-0, and we just mutually decided that the game was pretty much over, and we were calling it a wrap.
Very cool, man. Congrats, and hopefully many more to come. So
absolutely.
Let's go around the horn. We'll start with you, Rick. What do you have for high tempo then?
Mine would just be, with AAA seasons pretty much ending in Major League Baseball, this is a time of year where you get to see a lot of young rookies play. A lot of guys deserve some time and everything. Or if you're Pirates, you get to see Jordy Mercer play, and his ass won't be on the roster next year. So, I mean, I don't know what's happening. We're playing Pablo Reyes at third, so we got a young guy at third. I mean, you're seeing a lot of guys. I'm wearing my Padre stuff today. I'll probably get criticized in the mailbag next week. But Padres are throwing out a lot of young guys. They're throwing out, they brought up Francisco Mejia, who was their top prospect. So he's up now. So, I mean, Hunter Renfroe's getting a lot of playing time. So it's nice to see these teams that are out of contention are bringing up some guys to give them a shot. I know Pirates are playing the Reds. Reds brought up Blake Trahan. He got his first Major League game. He's one of their top 5 prospects. So a lot of top prospects getting played here. So it's a good time of the year. Even if your team is out of the playoffs, at least you can still criticize them for what the heck they're still doing here. And realize that you don't have to watch them on Sundays anymore, play and screw up because there's football on. And even on Saturdays, too. And if you want to watch the MAC game of the night on like Thursdays, you can watch that too because, trust me, it's not worth watching some MLB games right now.
I have to agree with you. Matt, what do you got for high tempo this week?
Well, you stole my high tempo for this week. Was just happy over our victory. It was nice to not be miserable at work after last week's loss. Just tough getting through the work week. But it's good to be on track now and looking forward to heading over to West Branch and possibly getting win number 2.
All right, very cool. Let's get into the Steel City update. Since Rick was talking baseball, we'll keep with the Buccos. The only thing I've had big besides them, and of course, Pirates are eliminated. They're not really eliminated, but what's the record right now? And this could be a game behind. 67-71, so definitely below the old 500 mark. Definitely not going to make a comeback, no matter if you believe it or not. I think the big thing is, I'm going to mispronounce his name, so Rick, go ahead and get me. Jameson Taillon is the Pirates nominee for the Roberto Clemente Award. So a little bit of positive news there. We'll see if he can get that done. You have anything else you want to add, Rick? I know you're a baseball guy.
I would love to see Kramer and Newman at second and short until Harrison and Mercer. You should be looking for apartments in different cities next offseason, but they were the combo in AAA, and they deserve it in AA because the AAA team missed the game playoffs by, I believe, a half game. So, I mean, it's not, let's try the kids out and see what they got because we know what the old guys don't got. They don't got bats. So let's see if these guys can put together some hits in August against some really bad teams. Because after you end the Reds series, you go to a terrible Miami team. You have Kansas City at home, too. I mean, you got some teams. And let's see what they do against good teams. You still got Cubs. You got a Cubs away series and a Milwaukee home series. So, I mean, let's see what they got. So, let's see if they can prove themselves to be the starters next year.
All right. Picking up with that, we also have hockey season starting to get ready for some camp. Going to be having some. When's the preseason start? That should be coming up, right?
Within the next 2 weeks.
So we'll have that coming up, adding another sport back to the docket where hopefully Pittsburgh can compete for another championship. Hopefully they're well rested. We know that hurt them last year. So look for some insights into that in the coming week. Getting into the Steelers now. Steelers played the Panthers in the last preseason game before we get into our Browns preview around the NFL. And they went bold, and they basically threw Josh Dobbs out there. We hit on it last week. He was going to be the starter, basically playing for his position. And I will say I am absolutely shocked that they meant it. I thought he was going to be put out there, and this was his audition for trade bait. But instead, after the game, I'm not sure how many days they waited, they cut Landry Jones, the guy we've been talking about getting rid of for what, at least a year now. So it's finally done, and I have to say, I am excited for Steelers football, more so than I have been in a long time, because it kind of felt like you're cheering for, what was that balloon that blew up? The Hindenburg, or the Titanic. Like, you're cheering for this massive team, most Super Bowl wins, and at any time, Ben Roethlisberger could just go down, sinking the ship or blowing up the balloon, whatever one of those things you want to go with. And it just felt like you're watching the games, you're excited because it's really cool, but you know at any time something could go wrong, and there's the future of the team, which sets us back to, I know the XFL's coming back, but remember whenever Steelers back in the day, they had to bring in Tommy Maddox from the XFL because they weren't prepared for that next step after the 95 Super Bowl loss. They went through a couple quarterback exchanges, drafted and other things, couldn't find their identity. The defense is always there, but on offense, now there's some type of contingency plan. You got 2 young quarterbacks. Ben was high on Dobbs. I thought he might have just been saying that stuff to keep him on the roster because he knew that he wouldn't ever be able to beat him out, even though it's Ben's job till he retires anyway. But now we got 2 young quarterbacks that the Steelers organization has kind of just said, look, beat each other up. Go for it. We drafted this guy, so you know you have a guy on your tail. And Dobbs played his ass off. I was very impressed with, it wasn't really an urgency. He actually played with some poise. And that was against, when you're starting the preseason week 4, that's going to be against a lot of the Panther starters. So it wasn't like he was playing the last 2 minutes against the 5th and 6th string guys. So, but I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Matt. I'll start with you. What'd you think of the game and the decision to cut Jones?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of times people will say, well, pretty much at this point, the 53-man roster is pretty much set, and the 4th preseason game is pretty much meaningless. It's trying to figure out who that 5th or 6th wide receiver is going to be on the depth chart. I definitely think Pittsburgh's plan going in was like what you said. I think it was to put Dobbs out there, see what his trade value is going to be, but then he absolutely balled out. He was like getting ready to try to fight the Carolina Panthers player after his touchdown run. He showed with some of his running ability that he could maybe get away from the rush as opposed to Landry Jones, who just kind of stands back there and takes a shelling after shelling. He brings a lot more to the table, and I was surprised that Pittsburgh went that direction. Typically, they go the conservative route, go with the veteran, and just kind of keep the status quo where it is. I think as an organization, they make the playoffs, they win a couple games, but I think like their thought process maybe is starting to change a little bit. Shake up the roster, try to get some new blood in there, or with having Rudolph there as the 3rd string, just mixing things up enough to try to change up the status quo. So I think that should be something that's going to pay dividends for Pittsburgh.
Well, I'll say a reason it was refreshing to me is I look at it in comparison to the Patriots. Now, a lot of people, they don't look at the back end terms of things and how the Patriots have stayed relevant for how many years. It's because they've been grooming backup quarterbacks that you can then trade on the market because Tom Brady's still around. It's happened with Garoppolo. You get him ready, and then you use him as trade bait. They had Matt Castle. How many have they had over the years? A couple. Where every couple years, they use these guys to get a ton more back picks, and then you can restock in the draft without actually having to tank to get those picks, because usually the shitty teams that need a quarterback are willing to trade for a guy that actually has some upside and has learned from the best. Where the Steelers, on the other hand, we've kept old veterans on the roster that don't have that upside, and you don't get that extra benefit. Now here you go with 2 quarterbacks around the same age. They're 1 draft apart. So no matter who you go with, if they keep playing at the level that it looks like they're going to be able to play at, you're going to have 1 quarterback then on the trading block, which is going to help get you those picks to restock your team when you start to lose some of these veterans. So that's the part that I'm excited about.
Well, I think you're right there, and that in doing so, in years past, we could go with the Gradkowskis, the Charlie Batches, that if Ben got hurt, they could be serviceable for a game or two. where I think where Ben's at in his career now is at any given point he could have that career-ending injury, and he could even retire at the end of the season or at any point because of age and because of durability. So I think the plan definitely has to be find who that next guy is. Is it Dobbs? I don't know. Is it Rudolph? I don't know. But having both of them there and trying to develop some of the youth and build the youth around it so that when it's time for Ben to retire, they have that next guy waiting, a la Green Bay, letting Favre go, having Rodgers step in and take over, and you have continuity at a crucial piece in the modern NFL.
Agree. Rick, what are your thoughts on this stuff?
Pretty much the same exact thoughts. If you would have asked me who played the best between Dobbs, Randolph, and Jones, I would have said, Dobbs played the best of all three of them. So, I mean, that's the easiest pick. So you keep the guy who's doing the best. Landry Jones wasn't good. He was serviceable best for maybe a year or two, and we kept him on too long. You got to go with a youth movement. You're getting older. You're a lot older team. You're going to have holes on your team already looking at next year's roster. Do you have a number one running back? Your offensive line is another year older. I mean, in your past, and you look at your defensive backs from last year, they were horrendous. So if they don't get better this year, you got to look again at defensive backs. I mean, it's just those things, And I think when you look at the Steelers roster, you've got to figure out ways to improve because you're a team that doesn't believe in free agency. Or if you believe in free agency, you get like two guys and think you did a great job. So you got to think of it that way too. So, do I think we're going to see Dobbs a little bit this year? Yeah, probably for a game or two. But maybe that's it. So it just depends upon how the Steelers do. But again, this isn't about Dobbs. This is more about offensive line, defensive line, and especially, I would say, the part of the defense that the year, if you're looking at a unit, which this year it's not going to be quarterback the pressure's on. It's the defensive backs. Because if they suck again, we're screwed. And I mean, it's just that way. And I mean, you got a Patriots team that now has Edelman back. The guy who destroyed us, 2 years ago and 3 years ago? The guy who beat us then is now back. So last year was Gronkowski. This year it's Edelman. And they could have both of them, and we could see each other again at an AFC Championship game.
Well, you can calm down there, Rick, because Edelman's not on roids anymore. And we know Gronkowski's good for an injury since everyone just targets his knees. So he'll be out. So they got rid of all the other receivers on the team. So this should be a nice little easy segue into the championship game for the Steelers. Let's go ahead and look at the Week 1 matchup with the Browns, though. We got, to be honest, this is one of the most hyped Browns matchups that I've seen in a while because for some reason, even Vegas denies it. People think that the Browns are the pick for the AFC North. I saw a poll. I forget where I saw it. They did the team with the best chance from worst to first in their division. So they did like all the last place teams from last year. In each division, who had the best chance to win their division this year, and the Browns won it going away. I think the next closest team was like the Bears or something. And I was thinking, like, do they not realize that the Steelers are the number 2 pick in almost everything? So it's not like they're in a division where it's going to be a toss-up. I mean, look, you still have the Ravens. I don't know if they have an identity yet. I mean, they're kind of faltering. Don't know if they're going to be able to make the moves. They need to decide what they're going to do on offense. And Steelers, Browns. Browns went with the youth. Are they going to have it? What's going to happen when these contracts are up? Are they going to have some type of team identity? And are they going to get that win this year? It's a big game. Let's go around with our predictions. Matt, what do you think? Browns, Steelers, Week 1.
I'll go upset. I'll go Cleveland there. I mean, you have Todd Haley, who we've talked about here before, who's knows the strengths and weaknesses of Pittsburgh's roster. He's going to have the game plan to take advantage of what they're doing scheme-wise. For as much as he's been criticized, all he did was score points. So, with that youth movement and with the things that you're hearing, I think he's going to drag them to a winning record with Hugh Jackson kicking and screaming the whole way.
Well, they have played the Steelers tough the last two games, at least last year. So it's not a stretch. Rick, what do you have?
Steelers easily. Hugh Jackson's still the head coach. Baker Mayfield's in his first game. And it's Cleveland. They're bound to do something stupid and screw it all up. So it's still the Steelers. It's still Cleveland. Cleveland hasn't been able to win. They got a young team. Steelers got the more experienced team. And as long as Steelers really don't shoot themselves in the foot, they'll win. The Browns are going to do something because they're the Browns. That's what they do. So, but I don't see how this is going to be Cleveland's game or year. Sorry to say that. I know it's in Cleveland. I know it's beginning the year and everything. But heck, last year they went 4-0 in the preseason and stunk the whole year. So I don't put anything in the preseason. They still got a lot to prove. They don't have a solid number one running back. You got the number one receiver, but if we double team him nonstop, who are you going to throw to? I mean, and your defense is totally young, so you got to figure out Ben Roethlisberger's checkdowns is everything that he has. All the weapons. The weapons are all going to be there except for Bell. And you got to figure out James Conner because he's a little bit different. But you also got to scheme for Bell because who says, again, he doesn't show up on Wednesday and the Steelers activate him. So, there's a lot of things. And our kicking game is better than yours. So you can't go down to say, hey, we can win it by a field goal because the Steelers kicker is better than the Browns kicker. Again, analysis of the kickers matters in the NFL.
All right, I'm going to go with an ugly score. I'll say 27-24 Steelers. And I could see it going the other way where the Browns score a last-minute touchdown and win like 31-27 or whatever that score would end up being. But I think it's going to be that. It's going to be a semi-high-scoring game. It's going to be ugly. And the Steelers' defense at times is going to look awful against the pass. The worst reason why Matt hit it, Todd Haley's there. He knows the defense. Steelers' defense hasn't changed. And they've had weeks to practice for it. You really think they're scheming against a preseason opponent? Hell no. They've been training this whole time for that Steelers game week 1. I think it comes down to it. It's early. Ben Roethlisberger is rested up. I think that's why I have the Steelers ahead. He gets the win. If Bell plays, it could be an extra score in there. I'm counting him out. And then the Browns have a chance because they keep it close, but I just don't think they get it done. If they do get it done, what I would like to see, if Baker Mayfield is the quarterback and he plays the whole game and there's not some weird trickery where he plays like one series or something and he's out, I would like to see him plant a flag on midfield. I know it's their home stadium, but I want that to become his thing, where he did it last year in Ohio State. He planted the flag on their stadium, their field. I think the Browns need something like that to get their fans excited, and a win over the Steelers would really put that and really ramp up the rivalry, I think, because that would piss a ton of Steelers fans off. You don't even have to plant the flag. Just pick it up and run around the field with it, waving a Browns flag. That's what I want to see, because I know it's early, and in the grand scheme of things, this game probably won't mean much. Worst case scenario, I think the Steelers will still split with the Browns, and then it comes down to some of the other games they play. I think the Steelers have the division for sure, but that's my thoughts on it. We'll go around. What do you guys have just for this week 1? What are your keys? What are you looking for? Any big teams or any upsets? I know we didn't really do any formal picks this year. For the stuff, maybe I'll collect those and we'll put them up on Instagram like we did last year after sometime later this week when the season starts. So what do you guys got going into week 1 now?
After you, Mish.
Yeah, the game that would to watch is Atlanta, Philadelphia, because you still don't have a healthy Carson Wentz, and now Jeffrey's both gone too for this game. So Atlanta could have a shot, but Eagles, are going to be packing that stadium, loving it every minute that they won a Super Bowl. So I know Vegas is still giving the Eagles a shot. They're giving them the shot to win, so I'll take them. That's probably your best game. I would say another hidden gem would be Minnesota, San Francisco. Does Garoppolo finally get his first loss? And this would be your place where you could say get your first loss because you have to go to Minnesota and play. So, I mean, I think Garoppolo loses his first game in Minnesota. I think that's a good one to watch. I mean, and if you're thinking about Monday Night Football, I recommend going to bed early because you got the Jets, Detroit, and the Rams at Oakland. I mean, I think 2 games that I already can pick the winner of right now. So, but those would be my main things. I mean, you do get the Seattle-Denver matchup in the 4 o'clock game, which would probably be your best. But I also say this, if you're not in your area, Yahoo, you can pretty much, or through their sports, you can watch the Atlanta-Philadelphia game, Pittsburgh-Cleveland, Jacksonville-Giants, Dallas, Carolina, Chicago-Green Bay, Jets-Detroit, and Rams in Oakland, all for free. So, I mean...
Can you pick those games?
Those are all the
games?
games.
Depend on where you are. Because I've had trouble. I'm in the South, people that haven't listened before and are just listening to the preseason show here. I'm in North Carolina, so it's tough watching Steelers for some reason down here. They try to shove weird AFC teams down our throat like Tennessee. So they should know that the Steelers have a bigger fan base here in the Raleigh area than any other team outside of Carolina and the Redskins, just due to the length of time the Redskins were the closest team. So go ahead, continue, Rick. You think you can watch all of them like MLB?
I think you can watch all those games I named because there's only 2 at the 1 o'clock hour. It's either Jacksonville Giants or you get Cleveland Steelers. So I think you can watch in the way it's popping up on my phone. What I didn't get the chance to do it today, but while Matt's talking YouTube talk, I'm going to look up what's the national broadcast games for everybody. So not depending upon your area, but I mean, it's nice to see there's a couple good games, but there's also a lot of bad games too. So, but I will say the team I'm looking to have the beatdown, I will say Baltimore will beat down the Bills. Home game for Baltimore. Nate Peterman's your quarterback. He'll be waiting tables next week at your local Denny's. I mean, let's go. Come on. You draft a guy in the first round and you play Nate Peterman. Nate Peterman. Was Tyler Palko not available? Pete Gonzalez, Rob Rutherford, Alex Van Pelt. I'm trying to think of other garbage pick quarterbacks through the years. I think I got most of them.
So bitter.
Wow.
So bitter. I know you
rattled off so many pick quarterbacks, and you could have 3 of your fingers cut off and name all the Penn State quarterbacks still in the league.
He could name all the pick quarterbacks, but he couldn't even get Mason Rudolph's name right. He called him Randolph. If he's a Pitt fan, he would remember that name after the beatdown he gave them last year.
I was in Pittsburgh like a block away when he was winning. Perfect time to see all the Pitt homers walk out crying. Loved every minute of it.
If that's not a sign, Rick, that you can't get a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback name correct, but you can rattle off the last 5-10 years of Pitt Panther quarterbacks, then I think that's a little bit of obsession on your part there.
When you have a family full of Pitt football fanatics and you have to bring them back down to earth, you just say Rob Rutherford and Alex Van Pelt, and it's like, it's like name a good quarterback since 1990 you had. Oh, wait, you haven't had one. Oh, wait, we had Kerry Collins. He went to a Pro Bowl and a Super Bowl.
One Pro Bowl.
Like 96? 97?
Setting the bar so low.
Yeah. Well, when we see another Pitt quarterback do it, we'll wait. Either that or they'll transfer. I mean, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, doesn't he count?
No, he doesn't. He counts as Delaware.
Why does he count there?
Because he didn't play with
he's elite.
He is an elite quarterback. Haven't you seen the sign?
Yeah, I got that. Matt, what do you got for these Week 1 games?
Well, I was kind of looking forward to that Atlanta game as well, but that's more so for selfish reasons with my fantasy team. Want to make sure that I made the wise investment of Julio and Matt Ryan, so hopefully Sarkisian's going to be calling some decent plays and not just drinking up in the press box
Yeah,
the
he's
whole
sober
time.
enough to call the game.
But I'm curious to see how the Raiders are going to do, and I thought it was interesting the way that they turned that Khalil Mack trade, because I thought for sure that the Raiders would at least hold on to him for the season, whether he played or he didn't, and kind of wait until they see what the lay of the land was going to be for the draft, and then possibly leverage, like once they knew what the value of those picks were going to be. Because if you're getting first round picks, but they end up being late first rounds, are you really getting that much value for an all pro? I think you would want to get someone that you guarantee you're going to be getting as good, if not better, of a prospect for. So I think they kind of jumped the gun with that trade and probably could have gotten maybe something more out of it had they have waited until after the season. But we'll see what Gruden has in store now that he's assembling his team and doing things his way.
Yeah, that was one of my games to watch. It's just I hate the double-stacked Monday night games. They know that most people live on the East Coast, and for some reason, they throw these teams on, and they're like, hey, we don't know why the ratings dropped. No, you know why they dropped. Just start the game early. Play them both at the same time, or an hour apart. So it's like college football, so that you can watch the ending. And if it's a shit game, which there's a great chance that these are going to be shit games. That first game is New York Jets and Detroit Lions. Don't make me wait through 3 hours of that garbage before I can watch the Raiders play. I want to see Gruden coach. I want to see him back on the sideline. And the next other game that I was going to watch is I wanted to see the evolution of Garoppolo. Is he going to be able to take that step onto a full season? I don't know. And that West Division is kind of wide open. I don't think the Seahawks have as tight a hold on that as they have in the past with some of the losses they suffered. So is he able to take that step up? And are they going to be a contender in the NFC? At this point, I'm down here in Carolina. I don't know if I buy the Panthers just based on how Josh Dobbs shredded that D on Saturday. I know they didn't have all their players in, but come on, guys. You're getting ready for the regular season, so that's another team that I would have on the watch list. But that's pretty much it for the NFL. What we'll do is we'll do a Southbound Sports poll, and we'll get our preseason picks like we did last year. We'll do the average wins for each team, and we'll put them up on Instagram. So follow us, Southbound Sports on Instagram, and you'll get those preseason picks. And we'll also do some extra stuff for the Steelers that we'll be sending out throughout this first week of NFL season. Let's go ahead and transition now into a little bit more of a depressing topic. College football. We'll start with the Big Ten. Rick, you want to go first, or should I go first?
This is why you schedule nobodies the first week, like Appalachian State. Had to look up what state they were in.
North Carolina.
They're West Coast.
I learned that. North Carolina. That was my thing I learned on that Saturday. What state that Appalachian State was in. Here's the thing. Like I said last week, and you two can cry now, this is why you don't schedule good teams at the beginning. I don't care about how it's going to make you look in about 10 weeks or anything. Because if you have 2 losses, you're already out. Let's be honest, you're out. You're not going to make the top 4. So you got to figure out a way to get either 0 to 1 losses and put the best thing ahead of you. Appalachian State was ranked in the top 50 in the AP, I think, before that game took place. Now, I think it has changed since then. But
Where did you get this 50 pick?
I don't know. That's what Penn State homers were telling me.
Rick,
that
they only do top 25, bro.
I think they only do top 25, but they said they were a top 50 team.
Who said
so
that?
I don't know who ranked them in the top 50.
Did
but
James Franklin tweet that out? You were eating it up?
Probably.
That's hot talk at the creamery.
Well, yeah. By the way, that ice cream is delicious on a side note. But here's the thing. We won. We got to play a home game. Year 2 teams, they played. They took the field in colors.
Well, let's keep it on the Penn State here, Rick.
Well, Penn State didn't play the best. They didn't have Givens in the lineup. They had a couple guys retire, so they needed a practice game. This was a perfect practice for them to get ready to go on the road and play Pitt. Pitt did beat them 2 years ago at the same exact stadium, and this is the same exact week again. As we know, Pitt always beats a team that should be in the Final Four. We talked about last week. Miami, Clemson, Penn State. Your last 3 years, they beat one of those teams that keep them out of the Final Four. So, I mean, they had to get ready for Pitt. Pitt played nobody. They played Albany. They beat them, obviously. So Penn State need to work on it. Obviously there's a lot of guys missing. You can see it around the field. They don't have the explosive running back like Barkley. I mean, they got other guys filling in. I think it'll be a lot better on the defensive line when Givens is back now from his week suspension. He'll be on the defensive line, and I think it'll be a little bit better. I mean, especially going into that stadium where it's going to be 2/3 Penn State fans probably. But Penn State, they still won. They had to go to overtime, but they won. Where other ranked teams lost, they won. So we'll wait for the AP and all those other ranking systems to come out. That Penn State may slide a spot or 2 or 3.
They're out,
but they'll still be in. They'll still be in. When all the rankings, I know everybody and their brothers hasn't come out yet. So, but yeah, we'll wait and see. But they won. That's what matters.
Well, Rick,
so they didn't play good football, but they won.
I'll say this. In the eyes of the playoffs, I'm pretty sure that's going to count as a loss for them. The overtime game against Appalachian
should have lost. It should have been. If you look at that at the last drive for App State, if instead of scoring the touchdown, the player has the common sense, and this isn't a teachable thing, but just the situational awareness to get inside the 5 and just go down in bounds and continue to run the clock. App State continues to run the clock down, take a knee, and it's game over. Take knees, run the clock down, make Penn State burn their timeouts, and then you kick the field goal to go up, and you end up not giving Penn State almost 2 minutes to run their offense down the field and score a touchdown or just score the points to send it to overtime.
I'll say this. I think, Matt, if I'm remembering the play correctly, I know which play you're talking about. He gets down inside the 10. I think he was hit and it was close to the sideline, and it looked like he delayed there for a second and kind of kept going, but he wasn't – it looked like he wasn't going to try to score at first. So I don't know if the hit, he thought he might have been out of bounds or what, but obviously he went and dove through the pylon. I think that's the play that he did score the touchdown. I think whenever a player has that in his mind and he gets hit, once you get hit, I think it throws you off. It's like the old Mike Tyson thing. Everyone has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. He got hit, and then he just rumbled forward. And you're right. The big thing there is the teams need to get a kicker that can make them not get a big kick return. That happened for Penn State. They get a big kick return that set them up. It happened in the Orange Bowl, Michigan, Florida State a couple years ago. Michigan scores like last minute to go ahead on a big run that was unexpected. And what happens? They pooch this high kick, and they run it down past midfield. Same thing Penn State did, and as soon as I saw that happen, it gave them all the life. But, Rick, we had this argument last week. Do you schedule the tough team? And right now, I will tell you, it looks like maybe James Franklin is one of the most overrated coaches, and I was wrong. Sure, he has the Big Ten championship, but a lot of bad coaches can win just based on fluke seasons. Because the season he won, he got destroyed by Michigan 49 to what, 10? 49 to 14. He got beat by Pitt that year. And it took a fluke Ohio State game, and still they almost didn't even make it there. I think that was the year, was JT the one where they had the last minute overtime with Michigan, Ohio State that would have kicked Penn State out anyway. So it took a lot of breaks to go James Franklin's way to get to that point. They were down to Wisconsin until they just started throwing bombs up in that Big Ten championship game. And now you look at this. He loses Moorhead. He has his quarterback coming. Everyone's saying McSorley was a Heisman candidate. He's gone. There's no way he's a Heisman candidate. If you can't pick apart App State, give me a break. I mean, you can throw the parallels to that Michigan team that lost to App State that year. They went 7-6, and guess what? Or whatever Michigan's that final record was. That's the only Michigan team to beat an Urban Meyer coach team. He beat a Tim Tebow-led Florida Gators team. That same Michigan team that lost to App State. So they definitely had the talent. But when you're looking at that, I would say that has to be thrown on the head coach, and it's not looking good. I've sat through those Brady Hoke seasons where the first game of the year, you're struggling with a team like Connecticut, and you're like, holy shit. Like, we got the win. That's great. We got that win. And then once you get in Big Ten season, it's over. So if I'm a Penn State fan, I would be really nervous right now. Really nervous. Because you got Pitt coming in, and I don't know how you could be confident for that game. Let's talk about the bullshit thing. Pitt sent out the tailgate instructions. You're only allowed to start tailgating at 5 p.m. What time does that game kick off? 8?
Yep.
So basically...
Thank your boy Bob Nutting.
Yeah. It's all about money. All about money. The Pirates play at 1 o'clock. They sold the passes for the Pirate fans first. So if you actually want to tailgate and you have a pass, you have to buy the Pirate pass, parking pass, and you have to buy the Penn State one. So you have to buy two.
Got to get Nutting that money. How is he going to pay for great studs like McCutcheon to come back to retire there, Rick? When we don't need 43. McCutcheon. He's gonna pay for him to come retire as a Pirate, especially if he wins a ring as a Yankee. He'll do one of those one-day deals, and all the Yinzers will be lapping it up.
Oh yeah, the Yinzer Nation will want to throw a parade for him. I mean, but I will say this: he got traded for two guys that we're never going to hear from later. And the thing is, Pittsburgh's all about money. They see the money, they see the dollar signs. The city of Pittsburgh. I'm getting off topic. I'm talking about the city of Pittsburgh. Sees money, they see dollar signs, they see everything on this. So
it's lining
that's what
up.
they're doing.
It's lining up for a Pitt win. Pitt looked pretty good. And
how are the Pitt fans going to make it there? I mean,
that's how Pitt plays, in front of nobody. They're hoping that people are still tailgating at 8 p.m. and not in the stadium. They're used to a quiet stadium. Penn State's used to that loud stadium. I'm telling you, if you're used to playing in front of crowds, no matter what, and you go out and it's dead silent, it's weird. It's awkward. So it's going to throw you off your game. So don't be surprised if Penn State comes out flat, even after that first win. It's going to be a closer game than what I thought it was going to be. I thought coming into the season that one would be a 31-14 comfortable win, where Pitt makes some weird moves where they run 18 shuttle passes in a row and score a touchdown, and then Penn State kind of adjusts, and that's it. So it might be close for the first half. But after that App State game, Penn State didn't make any adjustments. You cannot get out-coached by App State. You just can't. I don't know. So I will say I'm glad that happened to Penn State and not Michigan. Michigan game, I'm glad we played Notre Dame, because that was a game where you could kind of see the talent level. What was it? 3-4 years ago? When was the last time they played Notre Dame? It was 2014, so 4 years ago. Run out of the stadium. Didn't have the talent to compete with Notre Dame. This year, took the punches in the mouth. They were down 21-0, 21-3. I don't even remember what the score was. And guess what? That team didn't fold. I know there's a lot of negative Michigan fans out there, but Notre Dame's 24/7 has kind of put me on, because I've been using their talent composite where they have the top talent roster for the season. Notre Dame should be top 10, but 24/7 Sports has not put that out. People that have been following on Twitter, we had a pretty viral tweet about that a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry if you're waiting for that. 24/7 has not put that together. I'm assuming Notre Dame has top 10 talent. They didn't look faster than Michigan. Michigan was definitely able to compete there. Last time, our guys couldn't keep up. So Harbaugh has definitely evened that balance. Now, some of the coaching things, yeah, there were some coaching mistakes. Whatever, the weird 2-minute drill where it takes 8 minutes to get down the field to score a touchdown, that's pretty much on coaching. I know you have a new quarterback, whatever. Cramps, I don't know what you can do in that situation. But the positives I saw, Dylan McCaffrey, who I've been high on, we talked about him on the show. Don Brown was high on him. That's Christian McCaffrey's brother, who's now with the Carolina Panthers. He was one of the top. I think NBC said he was a second-rated quarterback, but I want to say he was overall number 5 in that class. I don't think he was a second. Maybe the second pro quarterback. I could be wrong. They said that during the broadcast. But he played awesome. And I think that's the guy that's going to be like the Andrew Luck that Harbaugh had at Stanford. Has an NFL family, has the pedigree, comes in. He was able to move the ball. He slid a few times. Threw the ball away. I think he was like 4 for 6 passing. And guess what? He didn't even look flustered. He got thrown into the game after Shea Patterson fell down and was like limping around. And to be honest, I don't think you should have put Shea Patterson back in. So I'm going to count that on Harbaugh. Dylan kept the drive alive to lead to that touchdown. You put Shea in. It's not like, I think they would have scored no matter what. And I don't think Dylan fumbles that ball. But whatever. I would rather have a top 10 matchup like that, Rick, because now you know that Michigan can compete. They have 2 games now to tighten things up, get whatever weird coaching signals. I don't think Shea knew all the plays because it looked like he was constantly reading his play sheet on his hand. So hopefully he needs to get spun up fast. That's the tough thing about taking a transfer quarterback. And in comparison to Penn State, I would rather have had the loss to Notre Dame with the comeback effort that they made than a squeaker against App State. Just for the psyche. Like, I feel much better with this Michigan team going forward than I would as a Penn State fan. And I've been on both sides. I've been in the squeakers with Brady Hoke where you know, holy crap, at any time this could fall apart. And App State, I mean, anything that goes their way in that last minute of that game, they win the game. They win the game. Get a better kickoff, they win the game. Have that guy fall down or get tackled. Have Penn State just tackle that guy. Penn State's defense just got ran over. Just tackle that guy, and they win. But luckily, Penn State was so soft on D, he scored with little resistance. He ran 3 times in a row, and each time was like a 10-yard gain. If Penn State tackles him once, App State wins. So it took a lot of weird breaks for Penn State to win that game, and I don't know how you can be confident. Matt, what do you think of the assessment of that? Since that was something that carried over, that was our theme last week. We saw how it played out. What would you think?
Well, one of the other deciding factors for as well as App State was moving the ball, their decision to kick the 56-yard field goal at the end of the game was terrible choice. I think for as much yardage as they were getting, roll the dice, because a field goal, even at the NFL level, that's not a guaranteed points. So I think they dropped the ball with that call as well. To me, I was going back and forth with it, but I think when you look at it bottom line, you're better off scheduling the tougher matchup because, like we've talked about before, this is week 1. I'd rather play someone competitive week 1 and even come out on the losing side and know you played a quality opponent, as opposed to playing a cupcake where you squeak by with the win. And what have you really learned about yourself? Now you go into week 2 and you're really not that proven, and now you got to go up against someone better. I think for a team like Penn State, it puts you at a disadvantage. For someone like Michigan, even this loss, it doesn't hurt them because you still have the big games with Ohio State. You still have some bigger games against ranked teams that if you win decisively, no one's going to remember that, in September you lost a game by whatever margin. It's what do you do later in the season and the I guess the style points. Look at Urban Meyer a couple years ago, hung 80 on someone right before the in the Big Ten championship, so that he ran it up high enough that they backdoored their way into the college football playoff. It's plausible to do that, and I think that's kind of where you're going to see it's going to pay off. Are you battle tested come November that you're ready to play the Alabamas, the Georgias, the teams that you know are going to get handed one of those playoff spots?
Yeah, and I'm going to use that because that was my last point before we move on to the ACC. If you're looking at that example, Matt, Florida State or Ohio State, when they won the national championship, they lost to Virginia Tech early in the year. They had that big-time matchup. They lost. Everyone was kind of shocked, and they were like, well, Virginia Tech's not even a big enough name. Guess what? Ohio State gets into the playoffs at 14-1 or 13-1, whatever the record was, until they went to the playoffs, and they won it. They beat Alabama. Having that early test gets you ready. Another example, Michigan State 2013 loses to Notre Dame, ends up 13-1 with the Rose Bowl. That was the Jameis Winston year. That was the last year without the college football playoff. If there was a playoff that year, Michigan State would have been in. So there's a perfect example of Notre Dame, and that wasn't the best Notre Dame team either, not keeping you out. There's other countless examples. You could say the year, even Penn State, they lost that one year. They lost to Pitt, got destroyed by Michigan 14-10, we said earlier. They go on a run. They're in the discussion for the playoffs. If they wouldn't have had that Pitt loss or the Michigan beatdown, they would have been in. You can have one early loss to a good team, because you can't tell me that Penn State team, did that Michigan not wake them up? Because that beatdown really woke that team up, and they were like, okay, if we're going to compete with Ohio State, we have to do something different, and that kind of rallied them. Luckily, Michigan was able to close, which is a good sign, because in the past, the team has been wilting. They've always had the lead. They've never had to come back like that against a team. They've had the lead against Ohio State, blew it. Twice, 2 years in a row, they've had the lead and blew it against Ohio State. They've had the lead against so-and-so. The last time that they really got behind was Penn State last year. Did they come back in that game? Hell no. That was a beatdown. So this year, at least, they made their adjustments and they came back. So it can be proven. The struggling with App State, like I said, I would take a well-fought loss any day over a heartbreaker, even a barely win against a lower team. No matter how good people say App State is, it's never going to feel the same. What was that? Was that Oklahoma that lost to Houston a few years ago? And then they were never the same after that year, because they had that loss, even though Houston with Tom Herman went 12-1 or 12-2 or something. They beat Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was never the same. And I think that was the year the Big 12 didn't make the playoffs. I could be wrong, where TCU and Baylor won. And then they got kicked out by Ohio State. So,
what do you got there, Mish? I know you're chomping at the bit,
but you still got to win. You said it, Rich. You're beating around the bush. You still got to win, because you already have one loss. Florida State has a loss. Michigan has a loss. I mean, you already have a loss.
Well, I'll say this, Rick.
You still can't argue you got a loss. You're an 0-1 team going into week 2. You're an 0-1 team going to week 2. If you want the Final Four spots, if you want it, you got to run the table.
Well, Rick, they have to. The key is,
if you don't run it, there's a good chance the teams like Wisconsin, who aren't that good, could run the table and go get 0 loss. They could do Wisconsin, not that I would say a pretty good team, but they could get 0. They can have 0 losses. You already have a loss.
Well, the key here, Rick, is it's not a conference loss, so it doesn't matter. Ohio State had a big loss
overall
to Oklahoma. Ohio State had the big loss to Oklahoma.
Florida State's probably going to be out of it. They're probably going to be out of the top 25 now.
Well, Florida State didn't.
They are.
Florida State didn't have the same answer, and we can shift to the ACC compared to a Michigan. Michigan came back in that game and had a chance to tie it. Florida State was completely out of it. You could argue the Cam Akers run, which I don't know. What was the stat for Cam Akers? We'll start with that. Getting into the ACC stuff here. Big game, Virginia Tech, Florida State. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than what it was. It was at home. First time the Seminoles have been held without a touchdown at home since 2007, I think, against the Hokies or something crazy. And the stat was Cam Akers had, 14 runs for
82 yards.
82 yards, and he had a long of 85. So he had one carry that was longer than his total yards for the game. That just shows you the state of the running game. They couldn't get a positive push for him to have anything, and they should have let that go. What are your thoughts? Let's just start with that play, Matt. Do you think he was in?
Oh my God, the touchdown play, he was in, and the refs didn't review it. That to me, that was the shocker, that you don't review that a potential scoring play.
Well, they did the hurry up offense. If you're the coach, why are you not in the ref's ear to, hey, let's take a second look at that, instead of having the guys run up there, because you're putting the refs at a disadvantage. And I think that was just one of the many mishaps that really turned the tide on Willie Taggart. If you look Willie Taggart up on Twitter, oh my, a lot of hot take artists out there after one game as head coach. So, Matt, go ahead.
If you're new to FSU Twitter, the last year and a half has been nothing but the sky's falling. And the thing that I took away from it is it was week one with a system that is completely different from anything that the majority of these kids have known. Under Jimbo Fisher, he was almost brutally the opposite end of the offensive spectrum. So where Taggart's trying to push tempo, he's trying to, push for faster paced offense and things like that with the RPOs. Jimbo Fisher was the exact opposite. He was running his offense at a snail's pace. He was, he was waiting, trying to find the perfect play for the perfect scenario, and to a painstaking point, was almost running himself out of time on the play clock. So I think as I was watching it, Bud Foster he had an excellent game plan. He put an 8-man box in. He dialed up pressure, and he basically forced DeAndre Francois to throw the ball. And what it looked like is that they were calling a lot of runs that Francois was supposed to pull it and throw. And it just seemed like first game jitters, first game back after the injury last year. He was a little bit trigger shy, and he wasn't throwing out on the perimeter as much as he should have or could have. Because I think if they got the ball, there were a couple plays that the receivers made great run after catch plays, but they really weren't getting as many as they needed to get the ball into scoring position.
Yeah, I watched the game. I think you're going to have the pains of a pro-style team going to spread. Michigan saw it with Rich Rod, which I think if they would have gave him one more year, I don't think you have the Brady Hoke debacle, because by that year, 2011, when they beat Virginia Tech in the Orange Bowl, by that time, he had already had his high tempo, the faster athletes, like the different style athletes on the roster. And so it takes, 3-4 years to get that in place. It's similar what Penn State had. Remember when Franklin came in with Hackenberg, who was supposed to be the top pro quarterback that year, and just in that offense with the spread RPOs and stuff, you just couldn't make it work. He looked out of sorts the whole year. Everyone was really low on Franklin until he got McSorley in and some other athletes that were used to working in space, like Saquon Barkley. It's going to take a while. It took, how many years was that for Franklin? Was that his third or fourth year? So
third year.
I think a lot of people were thinking, like, hey, Florida State already has these athletes, but when you've been coached in pro style, it's going to take that shift. Now, what's going to happen is it going to hurt recruiting? That's going to be the big question. Because if you don't get wins, you're not going to get the top-tier athletes. And now, when you have a team like Virginia Tech in your conference that's running more of, they're not really running the exact pro-style stuff, or even Miami that's kind of shifted towards that now. You're going to have to recruit against them, and they're going to say, look, we're running more of an NFL style. We know that's your goal. Florida State's kind of going towards this Oregon style. They don't put as many guys in the NFL as we do. Are they going to lose some of that recruiting edge that Willie Taggart has seemed to bring with them just in that first offseason? That's going to be the big key, I think. But, I mean, ACC, full of meltdowns, and a couple, like we've been talking, the big losses. Louisville gets killed by Alabama. I think everyone kind of expected that. The other big one was Miami. I don't think anyone expected that. They got beat by the Cajun Brady Hoke at Orgeron. Ed Orgeron made Miami look like the Miami of 2008 or 7, whenever they were in the middle of that scandal and they were getting beat down by everyone. That is what that looked like. And for the first game of the year, I don't even know what to think. Now who's competing in the? I don't even know the divisions, but who's competing?
It's Virginia Tech.
It's Virginia Tech.
So this is where playing them week 1 doesn't hurt you, because you run the table, you handle your business, and then you play them in the ACC championship game. You get your redemption as the ACC champion, and you're getting a seat at the table. When you have Clemson in your division side, you play Virginia Tech in the rematch and you win that one. As long as you're winning out and you don't lose a fluff game to an in-conference rival, you got it made. This is where I said we were talking about scheduling difficult opponents. It comes back to help you, because now you have film on what Virginia Tech did. And Florida State 5-6 weeks from now is going to be completely different than the disaster we saw last night.
I agree. I think the tough first game is going to be something to build off. I would agree to Rick's point that it should be neutral site, though. I think that you would have saw, Florida State, I don't think it would have helped because they were at home. But I think Michigan, Notre Dame, you would have saw a different game if it was a neutral site compared to what we saw, where Notre Dame came out confident and they took shots and had a few breaks go their way, where their guys won a few jump balls and it was over. So I would go, if you're an AD, go neutral site. I don't know. I know the ACC went a little bit different, and I would assume that Florida State and Virginia Tech are going to have a 2-year series in that. Maybe not. I would think that's the only fair way to do it. If they're going to do the kickoff, if you're the AD, make sure it's 2 years in a row, same week, at home and home, and then just you're rolling the dice then. Now, if you lose that first one at home and then you have to go to Virginia Tech next year to start the year, probably not looking good for you. But right now, that's what I think. You look at some of the other teams, you could go the other route where Oklahoma took the perceived lower team with Lane Kiffin's FAU and absolutely embarrassed them. And now everyone was like, well, Lane Kiffin was talking a lot of trash, but is that really a quality win for Oklahoma? The way they dismantled them, I don't think so at this point, unless FAU runs the table. And I know a lot of teams try to do that. But, it was a good first week. What were the other big games? Auburn beat Washington, and somehow Washington didn't really fall. But the Pac-12 looked garbage. USC was struggling with UNLV. UNLV, that was almost on the level of the Penn State for a while. They were down. It was near halftime. And then they kind of put some stuff together and kind of pulled away. But you can't be confident if you're them. You have to play Stanford and whoever else. Washington now, not good. I did want to mention Wilton Spate, old Michigan man, hurt his back again. He was a starting quarterback for Chip Kelly out at UCLA, so prayers go out to him, because it's never good to hurt your back twice. I would assume he's done now. His playing career is over. So got that second shot, didn't work out, so I just wanted to give him a shout out. And that Pac-12 is wide open.
Our boy, I gotta send some love to old Herm Edwards. Didn't know much about anything. Got that dub in week 1. Well, and they had that gigantic wide receiver make that awesome play where he out-juked the entire, Texas San Antonio team. I know it wasn't, we're talking cupcakes here, but fully expecting Arizona State to fall flat on their face, and came out and got a week 1 win. For as much as we've talked some shit on them, kudos to coming out and getting it done week 1.
Well, hold on. I think that's my matchup for. I just have to make sure it's them. That's my must-watch matchup for week 2 outside of the Pitt Penn State game. Michigan State plays Arizona State. And Michigan State looked like garbage too. So Rick was saying about Michigan losing that first game, they have to get wins. Schedule looks a lot easier when Penn State's going to overtime with App State and Michigan State can't find a way to beat Utah State. That looks like a clear path right there. Meh. See Ohio State at the end, get better, and get ready for that game. And you can pad yourself with some ranked wins when Penn State comes to the big house. Haven't won there in a while. So that's a big key game. Michigan State is traveling to Arizona State, the place you don't want to play. I remember Kirk Ferentz was like 2003 or 4. They were riding hot. He had just went to the Rose Bowl, I think. He scheduled at Arizona State, and I found something out. If you're an East Coast team, do not travel west and play at night. Your players' sleep schedules are all messed up, and it's hard when you first start classes early in the year for them to have any real schedule. Michigan State is playing Saturday at 10:45 in the heat of Arizona. That's my game to watch. Herm Edwards, Michigan State did not look good. That's my light cap. Usually I pick my man Mike Leach, but for this second week, that's my nightcap game after all the games are over. Definitely stay up and watch that game. It's going to be a doozy. Will Michigan State rebound? Will Herm Edwards get his signature win at home against the Spartans? So that's all I have for college football. I'll let you guys go around, see if you have anything else to wrap up the show, any other things you guys want to talk about. Go ahead, Rick. Start with you.
Nothing much. It's cupcake week in college football. So pretty much if you have a ranked team, they're not playing another one. So pretty much should be easy wins for a lot of teams here. So it doesn't look like a challenge for many teams. I mean, Michigan, powerhouse Michigan's got Western Michigan. There's
you can't
a powerhouse.
Give a shit. We just played Notre Dame.
Oh, my God. And what did I say? Scheduled cupcakes, you get wins. Now you got to run the tape. Jeez.
You're just flip-flopping. You just made fun of us for scheduling a cupcake.
I've been saying schedule cupcakes, and what do? You have Cupcake Central here. I mean, that's what you do. You play non-conference teams against weak teams. See, other teams listen. Virginia Tech's playing William and Mary. This isn't the academic bowl, so that should be a win. Ohio State playing other powerful teams. They're playing Rutgers, so they're staying within the Big Ten. I mean, Notre Dame's playing a tough team. Ball State, there's enough one. Savannah State's going to Miami. I mean, Alabama State's playing Alabama. Wow. And Connecticut's playing Boise State for some unknown reason. I don't know why you would want to go play on that turf, but congratulations, Connecticut. You're probably going to lose, too. But, yeah, Cupcake Central week. So pretty much DVR it or plan something to do in the after halftime hours. Maybe plan some activities like cut your grass. Maybe, work on getting your house ready for winter months. Clean out that garage. Clean out your closets. Donate some stuff to Goodwill or local veterans groups who can use some stuff too. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be planning on doing a lot.
All right, Rick, you sound so bitter.
No, I'm just being truthful. You scheduled nobodies. I mean, these are like the NFL preseason games you're stuck with, is the non-conference games in college football you're stuck with if you're a season ticket holder.
There were some good games this past weekend.
Yeah, this past weekend, the second week, there's nothing.
Yeah, we just said Michigan State, Arizona State. It's going to be a doozy.
They're not even ranked. I think there's two ranked. Yeah, the only ranked two teams that play each other is Georgia and South Carolina. That's it.
Who's Clemson?
Every other team is a ranked team playing a non-ranked team.
I thought Clemson had someone big. Maybe I'm wrong.
Texas A&M. They're not ranked.
A&M. They have Jimbo Fisher. If you go
They're not ranked, though.
Go on Noel's Twitter, they're begging for him to come back. They said, pack up that Christmas tree. They said, tell him this Christmas tree's on the street. Bring that back inside, buddy.
That's what happens when you lose. You try to get back your winning ways.
All right, Matt, what do you got this week?
Got nothing. Just trying to right the ship. Willie Taggart, if you're listening to the show, it'll be okay in week 2. I struggled in week 1. I got the win in week 2. It'll be okay. It plays out better. Just stick to the script. One thing I will say, though, watching, I love the coaches' room. that they broadcast. And even though Florida State did not play the way that I thought it did, I really did like the perspective that Hugh Freeze brought with the stuff that he did at Ole Miss. He was like coming unglued, saying, like, watching what Virginia Tech was doing to the receivers on the outside. He's like, oh, just throw it. Just throw it every single time. They have 8 guys in the box, and he's like counting off all Virginia Tech's defenders that they had inside the box. They were set to stop the run. It was interesting to watch. And for me, it was nice to see that as the things that I'm thinking, well, why don't they just do that other coaches are agreeing? So hopefully they fix those mistakes and move on to some better football.
Did they have Urban Meyer on hand for that?
No, he was too busy yelling at Ohio State at halftime.
I would have liked a nice Hugh Freeze, Urban Meyer breakdown on how to delete text messages from your phone and how to get recruits whenever you're outside of the permitted talking hours because you're on suspensions and stuff. I think that would have been a cool breakdown. The last thing I have, I don't know. I want the fans out there, if someone has Wall Street Journal, they put out this tweet. It's a protected post, but they picked on Florida State. I have the screenshot. I'm going to share it on our Instagram, so follow us on Southbound Sports on Instagram and Facebook and S-Bound Sports on Twitter. But they are saying that they did research and found that Florida State announces more, almost double the attendance than what they actually have. Their actual attendance.
I'm glad you brought that up. Coming from a program that touts how important their 100,000 plus consecutive game. There were 2 games, relatively recent memory, where you were at like 70,000, and when you're counting the employees that are there, random people that are showing up,
Matt, these are the stats.
Fans. Count fans.
I'm looking at it. The lowest team that they had was Louisiana Lafayette, Central Michigan, Toledo. Most fake tickets. Guess who's tied with Toledo for third? Florida State. 56.7% of their tickets are actual real tickets. The rest, fake. It's
well then let's start taking. We'll start counting all our concession stand workers, all our vendors, all the people like Michigan does. We'll have 200,000 people at our stadium.
I don't know. You guys having like a Manti Teo date night where people just bring a buddy and then they bring their girlfriend and count that ticket? Is that how Florida State gets their attendance?
Guess what? I don't care what the hell they do. As long as they start winning some games and start blocking people on the offensive line, I don't give a shit what they do.
If you have the actual stats outside of that, the other teams that they had in theirs was Old Dominion, Indiana, Arkansas, Charlotte. Didn't even know Charlotte had a D1 team. Kansas, and, of course, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is at 59.3. I don't know if that's 10. But for some reason, they highlighted Florida State. It's definitely gray in this as I guess they're the first Power 5 faker. So definitely looking into it. And one thing to note, they don't have the Power 5 because Miami definitely would be down in this bottom list. Their stadium's half empty too, but they're a private school, so they won't report that. And get people there, Matt. Why not count all those other people you said they're there?
I don't know. Attendance looked good last night.
I know. I kept hearing all these turkey calls. I was getting confused. I thought it was spring gobbler season. Here, clean as day on that television.
It will be in November. We'll get it taken care of.
All right.
We'll come down your way for the ACC championship game.
All right. Sounds good. That's our show for this week. Let's go Steelers. Here we go, Steelers. Get that first win against the Browns. It should be a good one. And we'll be coming back next week strong. Follow us, like I said, S-Bound Sports on Twitter, Southbound Sports on Facebook and Instagram. We'll be doing our previews and stuff on there. So thanks for listening again, and we'll see you next week.